Can I just say one thing firstly? I love the name Eat Sleep Boxing Repeat.
Welcome back to ESBR Boxing's YouTube channel. Delighted as always to be joined by Paul and Punch Out Boxing's Ra Hokum. This is the big fight breakdown for the undisputed fight at Super Bantamweight between the monster Naoya Inoue against this long-awaited opponent Murodjon Akhmadaliev, taking place in Nagoya, Japan. Gents, good to be joined by both of you. One of the most exciting fights that we're likely to see take place this year. One of the biggest tests that we're going to see Inoue come up against. Interested to break it down with both of you. Ra, as our special guest, we'll go to you first. Is this Inoue's biggest test in his career so far? Obviously, we've seen him fight Stephen Fulton as his kind of introduction to the division. We've seen him fight Nonito Donaire twice. But is this his toughest fight in your opinion?
I'm inclined to think yes. For the past year or so, I have been beating the drums for Murodjon's chances in this fight, and I'm holding on to that. Yeah, I think it will be Inoue's most difficult night of his career so far.
Yeah, Paul, would you agree with that? Do you think it's his toughest one, or do you see something else from Inoue's CV which you look at and think that's a tougher test for the monster?
No, I think on paper this probably is the toughest, to be perfectly honest. Whether or not it plays out that way, I suppose remains to be seen. It is a fight I'm looking forward to, and it's really, for my money, the only fight left that I really wanted to see Inoue in at 122 pounds. And I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all that he wins this. It's a tough fight, but yeah, I think on paper I do agree with what Raz said there. I feel like this could be and probably is Inoue's toughest test for sure.
Yeah, seeing odds of 6-1 for Akhmadaliev just to win this fight, Paul. See, me and you have discussed betting tips plenty in the past. Do you think that's bang on? Would you expect to be a bit wider considering it's in Japan? Inoue is undefeated. It's not everything's about betting odds, but in terms of that price of 6-1, does that surprise you?
Yeah, I would say maybe I was going to say is it a little bit too wide? I don't know. Given what we've seen of Inoue recently being put on the deck by Luis Neri and obviously Ramos Cardenas as well, you maybe expect him to be a little bit closer than that. Still, obviously expecting Inoue to be an overwhelming favourite, and that he's an overwhelming favourite against everyone he's going to fight. Let's be honest. Um, but yeah, there. I think that's actually quite decent odds. If you are an MJ Akhmadaliev fan and you feel like he's going to get the job done, they're really appetizing odds for me for sure.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, arguably the number one and number two in the division against each other. Akhmadaliev just the one loss in his career against Marlon Tapales. But we'll see. We'll see how much of a tough test it is. Paul, Inoue, strong favourite here. If he wins this fight, what happens next? Are we going to see the Nakatani fight, which is maybe a fight a lot of people want to see? See, at the timing of this video, it's just a couple of days after Nick Bull's victory over Sam Goodman. But could it be someone else? We don't know if Inoue's going to stay at super bantamweight, move up to featherweight. What are your thoughts? Assuming Inoue wins this fight, what do you think is going to happen next?
Yeah, I think if he's to stay at super bantamweight, you have to say that the only reason he would stay at super bantamweight now is for that Nakatani super fight. Without being aficionados and experts in Japanese boxing history, I think we've said a few times, that would probably and undoubtedly be the biggest fight in Japanese boxing history. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that would be the case. We've seen Nagatani recently saying that he might relinquish his bantamweight belts in favor of a move up to super bantamweight. So yeah, if that happens, then you'd like to think that he's heard rumblings that the Inoue fight could happen next. If not, then yeah, we've also heard that there's perhaps the Nick Ball fight up at featherweight. But if he's staying at 122 pounds, yeah, I think the Nakatani one. I would put it this way: I would prefer the Nakatani fight at 122 than I would the Nick Ball fight at 126 and moving up the featherweight. I want to see Inoue up at featherweight, but for me, I would rather see the Nakatani super fight at super bantamweight first.
Yeah, brilliant. Like as you mentioned, one of the biggest fights that will probably ever take place in Japan. two kind of undefeated guys, probably both in the top 10 pound for pound at this moment in time. So I agree with you. I think you want to see elite fighters against each other, but we'll see what happens. Ra, give us your thoughts. We're not going to, obviously, Inoue's not definitely going to win this fight, and without giving predictions away, if he does, give us your thoughts on kind of maybe the next 12 months of Inoue's career.
I think the Nakatani super fight is next. I think Nakatani has officially confirmed he is vacating his bantamweight titles to move up. There is rumors that he's going to fight on this supposed Riyadh season Japanese themed card at Christmas. And both Inoue and Nakatani at some awards, didn't they essentially say, let's do this fight? And in Japan, I don't think they've got that culture of just doing a lot of talking just for clout. So they've both sort of said, yeah, let's do this fight as soon as possible. So I think that their teams probably have that already penciled in. So I think that will be his big fight next, presuming he gets past Murodjon sometime early next year in Japan.
So I think, yeah, like you're both going for Nakatani, gents, and I probably agree with you. But therefore, I do want to ask about the Nick Ball situation, changing the topic slightly, because it feels like people only ever want to talk to Nick Ball about the Inoue fight, and it sounds like that fight is possibly going to have to wait another year for that fight to happen. Ra, I'll go back. I'll go back to you. What do you think of the whole situation when Nick Ball just seems to be kind of talking about Inoue because he's been asked about Inoue, but it feels like that fight's not going to happen next, and there's no guarantee of that fight happening at all, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that fight that's just being talked up amongst British fight fans, really, and I guess probably Nick Ball's manager and promoter. They obviously would love that fight because it's a huge money fight. I don't think Inoue himself and nobody in Japan has ever talked the fight up as far as I can see. I mean, is it even a particularly big fight for Inoue? I don't think so. How big a draw is Nick Ball in the UK? If it was the sort of fight that could say Phil Anfield, then maybe Inoue would be interested in it for a bucket list thing, fighting a foreign stadium. I don't know, but I've never heard anyone in Japan express any particular interest in it. And given that he's in no rush to move to featherweight, can't see it. I think it's more likely if or when he moves to featherweight, it'll be an opponent that his American promoters top rank handpicked for him, depending on who the title holders are. There's no big names at featherweight particularly, so that they'll pick whoever they is convenient for them and their promoters.
Yeah, and I think that fight could be Nick Ball in terms of picking someone.
Mm-hmm.
But it just feels like with Nick Ball, it's all about Inoue, but with Inoue, it's all about the fight he's got coming up and then possibly fighting Nakatani. So it's a bit of a strange situation, if you ask me. Paul, I'll go back to you. People in boxing love to talk about pound for pound lists. It feels like whenever one of these top fighters fight and win, everyone says, "Oh, they're the best fighter in the world." I.e., Usyk and Dubois a few weeks ago. There's obviously Terence Crawford fighting Canelo. I'm sure if Crawford wins that fight, people are going to be talking about him as the number one pound for pound in the world. But there's Inoue as well, and maybe some other fighters that are going to come into play. As things stand, where is Inoue in your pound for pound list?
Yeah, I think before I say where I officially think he is, I think 99% of boxing fans would agree that's your three in whatever order: Usyk, Inoue, and Crawford. I think that's most people's general consensus is that's probably going to be your top three. That's my top three in terms of an order. As we sit here today discussing this, I have Alexander Usyk as my number one pound for pound fighter. Just what he's done since going to heavyweight is simply incredible without going on too much about it. I did have Crawford at number two, but maybe I do think I have Inoue at number two now simply because maybe just activity of the last while. But as I said, if Crawford beats Canelo the same weekend that Inoue's fighting Akhmadaliev, like Crawford goes to number one straight away for me, just because of the weight division and the fact it's Canelo and he's jumping up 2 weights from light middleweight where he wasn't really even a 154-pound fighter either. So I would put him to number one. But yeah, I still have Inoue behind Usyk. As we're discussing this today. So yeah, number two for me currently.
Ra, would you? Paul says that 99% of boxing fans have got Inoue, Crawford, and Usyk in the top three. Would you go along with that, or are you in the 1%?
No, I'd agree with that. And yeah, I'd agree with Paul's order. Of course, pound for pound is one of those things. It depends on your criteria. At the moment, I would put Inoue as number two. Of course, a few hours before he fights Murodjon, Crawford is fighting. We'll hopefully we'll have the result from the Crawford Canelo fight. I think a Crawford win for me cements him as number one by some way, simply because of moving essentially 3 divisions up, fighting another undisputed champion who himself is a pound for pound candidate. I think that will take some beating. I don't think Inoue could catch up to him, even with his greater activity, because he's not particularly fighting men that much bigger than him. I think for Inoue to catch Crawford's achievements, he would have to do something like go up to super featherweight and fight someone like Tank Davis there. That fight's been talked about, but that's the sort of thing I would put on a par with Crawford going up to super middleweight and beating Canelo. And of course, as you mentioned, Usyk just overcoming enormous size disadvantages up at heavyweight. So yeah, I think for now, Inoue is going to be, I guess, stuck at number 3, but there's a huge gap between position 3 and 4, so in the pound for pound rankings by my definition.
Yeah, no, look, we'll see how these things change over the next couple of years. Obviously, Dimitri Bivol's in there. Jesse Ben Rodriguez is there as well. So it's we'll see how much the list changes. Obviously, you could argue that those top 3 fighters are in the grander stages of their careers now. In a couple of years, all of those fighters could potentially be retired or have a new top 3. All right, chaps, coming towards the end of the video now. It's prediction time. Paul, I will go to you first. What is your prediction for this one, please?
Yeah, as much as I think we've maybe seen slight fragility in Inoue against Cardenas and even Neary from being floored, he's got back up and secured the stoppage himself. He's just a knockout machine. I think he maybe, not saying he'll have to overcome a knockdown or anything here, but he might have to overcome a few hairy moments. I think it could be fairly even early on, but ultimately, I see Naoya Inoue adding another stoppage to his resume here. To be perfectly honest, I'm going to go with Inoue to stop Akhmadaliev in the second half of the fight.
Yeah, November 2019 was when Inoue last an Inoue fight last went the distance. So yeah, nearly 6 years ago. Ra, looking forward to this. Give us your prediction for this one, please.
Straight into the prediction, or do you want my little blurb around it?
Oh, you can do what you want, mate.
Well, you might recall when I predicted Nery could defeat Inoue, which was widely scorned upon until that infamous first round where we saw him dropped heavily, in my opinion. What I had the opinion was that the first time Inoue gets seriously hurt in his career, he might start to second guess himself and be hesitant, and that would enable an opponent like a Nery to maybe get the upper hand. Now, where I got it totally wrong was that didn't happen with Inoue. The hesitation lasted all of 30 seconds before he adjusted to dominate the fight. And I think where I got it wrong was that culture of shame that they have in Japan. That fear of letting down your team, your employer, your country, that overrides fear of actually losing for these fighters, which may be a reason why we've seen some of these tragedies recently in Japan. So because of that, I don't think we'll ever see, an Inoue hesitant or second guessing himself. What I do see happening though is MJ being trickier for him than any previous opponents, and the fact that MJ doesn't hit as hard as Neri and maybe Cardenas might actually work to his benefit, because I can see him nailing Inoue repeatedly with his left hand without hurting him enough to bring that sense of urgency that we saw the two times Inoue was dropped, where he obviously moved through the gears to get the opponents out of there. Because of that, I can see him wrong-footing Inoue for much of the fight, winning enough rounds. However, I still can't bring myself to say he's actually going to get the decision. I think what we'll see is something like Tarver Jones one, where he provides the trickiest night of Inoue's career, but it won't have been enough to get enough of the rounds on the judges' scorecards. And I know Japan, if there's any away day where you can get a fair shake, it is Japan. But I just think that with all the governing bodies also eyeing that super fight with Nakatani and their, sanctioning fees, I think as the home fighter, Inoue will get a controversial decision, or it might end a draw, in the same way we saw a Roach and Tanks fight end. So I'm going to go for a draw or a Inoue split or majority decision, with MJ going away crying robbery.
Thank you very much for that, Ra. In terms of crying robbery, 'cause we do want to mention this video, you are making the trip out there. Very excited for you. But are you going to be running around the streets in Nagoya screaming robbery as well, if your prediction comes true?
I've been told that Japan has very stringent cultural sensitivities around certain behavior. So I won't be running and shouting, but I will be politely saying that Murodjon was robbed if it does play out that way.
Fantastic. Well, really, just for that reason, I hope Akhmadaliev kind of pulls it off, depending on what way you look at it. In terms of my prediction, gents, I think I'm going with Inoue, but I'm not super confident. Inoue, 32 years old now. I do think he's past his best personally. So I would consider this a 60-40 fight. I think those odds I mentioned of 6-1, I'll probably be putting some money on that, because I think those are fantastic odds. I will go for Inoue to get a late stoppage round 9 or 10 after a bit of a war, to be honest. I think Inoue could get dropped. I think he could possibly be down at the time of the scorecards, but I think this is a tough fight. This is a really tough fight for Inoue, and I think my worry about Inoue is as well, in the last couple of years, I fought the likes of TJ Jaheni. There was that late replacement opponent from South Korea, Yoo-Jun Kim. He's not been fighting fighters anywhere near his level back to back. Not necessarily his fault, and I just think he could possibly pay the price for that against Akhmadaliev. But we will see. Really looking forward to it. Ra, Paul, thank you both of you for your time, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thanks, mate. All the best.